understand the history of professional and technological education and how issues like financial dependency and labor overexploitation influenced its development. Additionally, we will see how history is constituted through written accounts and photography, which are essential tools for preserving and interpreting the past. This is the proposal of the text History of Professional Education, Hopes, Struggles, and Independence. I am Paulo Cesar and I will help you understand a little more the content that will be covered in the selection process for the Prof Masters program, EPT, which is the Masters in Professional and Technological Education. And if you are not yet subscribed to the channel, take the opportunity to subscribe. That way, you will be notified about the next videos that will be posted here on the channel, and you also have the opportunity to enter the QR code here on my notification channel, where I will post about other free classes and other studies that were part of our studies for the Profast EPP. Before talking about professional and technological education, it is important to highlight photography as a documentary source which goes beyond appearance, beyond the representation we achieve at first glance. Surpassing this first view allows us to identify in the available documents, written, oral, and iconographic. We seek to understand the issues that unsettle us when trying to comprehend ongoing events. But the waters of memory and history, as Maria CIAVATTA says, are restless, always in motion, full of unforeseen events, of unexpected circumstances. We thus speak about the lives of men and women who not only work, they feed themselves, reproduce, live in society, relate to each other, build bonds of friendship, collaboration, or even competition. They belong to different groups and social classes, have different ideologies. They are subjects who build their history in specific space-times. And when we talk about the history of professional and technological education, we can address two aspects: the social processes that produce it, or the narratives that are constructed about it. For example, professional and technological education in Brazil was completely influenced by the country's economic conditions. Economic dependence on central countries and the overexploitation of labor created a scenario where access to quality education was restricted to a few, while the majority of workers were destined for a qualification. A technical training that met market demands was deepened, a reality that did not provide a complete education for these students. Rui Mauro Marini, in the book Dialectics of Dependency, presents the characteristics of labor in countries with dependent capitalism. First, the overexploitation of labor in terms of increased productivity and increased surplus labor. This means that workers are forced to increase productivity, that is, to produce more, while they work for longer hours. This results in overtime, a longer workday, without adequate compensation for it. Second, a wage kept at the level of the workers and their family's survival. The workers receive a salary that is barely sufficient for themselves and their families. This is because the goal is to keep production costs low to increase company profits. Third, low educational levels, directing workers to manual labor, the simplest jobs. While developed countries provide professional and technological education that raises the level, ensuring research and the development of new technologies. Maria will also emphasize that we can see this in our daily lives. Many of the technologies we use, such as cell phones and computers, are developed in wealthy countries but assembled in poorer countries where wages are lower. And this keeps dependent countries at a disadvantage. And when we talk about the history of professional education in Brazil, we need to remember that it is entirely linked to the world of work. But an interesting point made by Maria CIAVATTA in the text is that many scholars do not often refer to original sources, such as archives and historical documents. This means that much has yet to be explored and contextualized in relation to the time and place where they occurred. There is infrequent use of primary sources, institutional collections, public and private archives, and not always the issues of time and space, periods, dates, locations, the social totality, its mediations and contradictions, the social subjects, and the circumstances experienced are made explicit. The articles in the book Historiography in Work and Education by Maria CIAVATTA seek to analyze some books that are considered exemplary. These books address the history and education in their different aspects. The first book, which is the foundation of the history of professional education in Brazil, is The History of Industrial Education in Brazil by Celso Sukov da Fonseca. The entirety of this work covers educational initiatives from the time of the arrival of the Portuguese, through the guilds, the actions of the imperial government, and up to the early provinces of the Republic. It is a book rich in details, maps, graphs, school building plans, photographs, presented in a methodical, historical, and chronological manner with many period sources. Celso Fonseca conducts a study of the historiography of professional and technological education, specifically industrial education, allowing an understanding of the organization and evolution of this process. If it weren't for Celso Fonseca's dedication to documentation and research, we would not have access. A significant portion of the knowledge and history of work and education in Brazil. The second foundational work and knowledge base regarding professional and technological education are the three books by Luiz Antonio. The Teaching of Artisanal and Manufacturing Trades in Slaveholding Brazil, The Teaching of Trades at the Dawn of Industrialization and Professional Education in the Spread of Industrialism. Professor Luiz Antonio Cunha provides us with a valuable and rich contribution when we are understanding the history of professional education in Brazil, analyzing its origins from primary and secondary sources. The author referred to various historical documents from the period, which covers from colonial Brazil to the end of the 20th century, such as decrees, government reports, letters, manuscripts, and his own research on apprenticeship, the roots of the conception and professional education and its transformation, as the transformation of Brazilian society was also taking place. This and other works clarify a phenomenon that occurs throughout the entire history of Brazil: the presence of landowning and business oligarchies, which have always been prodigal, that is, wasteful in maintaining their wealth and privileges. And they have always been concerned with treating the struggle of the working classes and poor children as a social issue, seeking there to mitigate their ills with religious assistance and the initiatives of the Republican state. The educational, formative, and shaping experience has always been instituted there as charity, and in truth it was nothing more than a disciplining action. And all of this happens from the perspective of the bourgeoisie, who idealize this type of education for the formation of the working class. In his book Against the History of Liberalism, the Lo Surdo gives us a view of the liberal doctrine that helps us understand today's Brazil. The root of the word liberalism is freedom. It is always related to the word democracy. However, what history shows is the transition from liberalism to democracy, which does not happen in a harmonious or peaceful way. On the contrary, it is accompanied by the non-recognition and denial of rights. First, since the colonial period, Empire and Republic, there was a denial of the right to basic education for the entire population, which only began to change in the 1920s and 1930s, but has experienced permanent regression up to the present day. Second, the training for trades and professions has always been accompanied by prejudice against manual labor, which was always the narrative of the native elites of Brazil. The corporate military dictatorship gave a new regressive push by implementing Law No. 5692 of 1971 regarding compulsory professionalization that private schools never followed. During the period of the country's redemocratization, this law was repealed in 1980, and the new Law of Guidelines and Basis of Education, the LDB, through Law 9394 of 1996, establishes integrated training between scientific foundations and specific knowledge. Again, the inauguration of the neoliberal government of Fernando Henrique Cardoso, along with productive restructuring and cost-cutting, redirected professional education towards the labor market through Decree No. 10208 of 1997. The struggles of educators with the Ministry of Education, the Federal Network of Technical Schools, and the State Departments of Education at the beginning of the Lula government led to the revocation of this decree. Subsequently, another decree was approved, No. 5154 of 2004, which allowed the return of integrated training between general and specific technical and technological knowledge. In 2016, the Temer government approved the deregulation of labor relations by canceling the CLT and promoted the educational counter-reform through Law No. 13345 of 2017, which established the formative itineraries, followed by the National Common Curricular Base, the curricular reform, life projects, entrepreneurship in a context of poverty, hunger, and unemployment for a considerable part of the Brazilian population. In this video, I talked about the history of professional education as a strategy of a patriarchal system, concentrating income, exploiting labor, and accumulating capital. And for this reason, the writing and recording of history play a unique role in the attempt to, through knowledge, preserve the memories of struggles and resistances against the oppressions of the capitalist system. If you like this summary video, feel free to comment below and I will read and respond to your comment. Don't forget to click like so YouTube will understand that you are enjoying the content and want to receive others that will be posted in the coming weeks. I'll see you in the next videos so we can continue to understand a bit more about this scenario, this universe of professional and technological education. See you in the next video.